Namaste. A warm welcome to Karuna-Yoga with Compassion. I'm your host, as always, Kiran Adibatla, founder of a yoga studio and a school with the same name in Pleasanton, California. Today, we are going to talk about something we all experience: the conflicting thoughts that buzz around in our minds. We'll explore how understanding these inner battles can help us find peace, both inside ourselves and the world around us. Have you ever noticed the sheer diversity of thoughts that can arise within you? And sometimes almost all at once. One part of you yearns for that invigorating yoga class, visualizing the stretches, the strength, and the post practice calm. Yet another voice gently whispers, just one more episode, or the bed is so comfy, or you can go tomorrow. This isn't about laziness. It's a tangible example of the mind's inherent nature to generate opposing ideas. We feel conflicted because two different aspects of our inner mind are pulling in different directions. Our heart might desire growth, connection, and well being, while our mind, on the other part of it, might cling to comfort, familiarity, or immediate gratification. This internal tug of war, this heart versus mind dilemma, is a common human experience. It plays out in small daily decisions like what to eat, what to prioritize, how to spend our time. And when we are caught in this internal conflict, true peace feels elusive. But what if we could understand this mental process better? What if we could learn to navigate these internal contradictions, moving towards a more neutral, peaceful state? This is precisely where the profound wisdom of yoga philosophy offers us invaluable guidance. As always, if anything I am saying sparks a thought or reminds you of your own experiences with these conflicting ideas, please call in and share them. Tell us what kind of conflicting thoughts you often have, and how do you deal with them? The number to dial is 1877 Bolly 92. I repeat, 1877 Bolly 92. If not, I hope something I've shared resonates with you and encourages you to keep listening. Yoga texts, particularly Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, begin by defining yoga itself as Chitta Vritti Nirodha, the stilling of the fluctuations of mind. Chitta is your mind and vritti are the fluctuations. These vrittis or fluctuations are the whirlwind of thoughts, perception, memory, imagination, and even sleep that constantly churn within our consciousness. Our conflicting thoughts are prime example of these vrittis. One vritti says do this, another one says do that. When we are identified with these vrittis, when we believe every thought is an absolute truth, we become lost in that conflict. Patanjali identifies 5 main types of vrittis and these modifications of mind. Understanding them is the first step towards stilling them. The first one is pramana, translated to right knowledge or valid cognition. This knowledge gained through direct perception, inference, or testimony from reliable sources. For example, in yoga practice, you learn a new pose from your yoga teacher, which is testimony. You then try it and directly experience the stretch in your hamstrings. That's perception. You infer that consistent practice will improve your flexibility, which is inference. This is all valid. But the vritti arises when we become overly fixated on only this external provable knowledge, perhaps rejecting anything that isn't immediately tangible. When you try to tell your toddler what to do, and they won't listen because their teacher didn't say to do it in that way, and they believe their teacher is right, have you experienced this? That's a prime example of that vritti. The second one is viparyaya or wrong knowledge, misconceptions. This is false or incorrect understanding, often based on perception or illusion. For example, you attempt a difficult arm balance, you fall, and the thought immediately comes up: I'm not strong enough. I'll never be able to do this pose. This is a misconception, a viparyaya. It's an incorrect understanding of your potential and the process of learning. Your body just not be ready yet, or you need more specific strength, not that you're fundamentally incapable. The third one is vikalpa, or imagination or fantasy. This thought is based on words, concepts, or images that have no real substance or direct experience in the present moment. It's often where anxieties about the future or endless daydreams reside. Again, example in your yoga practice, while holding a challenging pose, your mind starts to wander. You imagine yourself effortlessly performing the pose in front of a huge audience. Or, on the contrary, you fantasize about the delicious meal you'll eat after the class. These are vikalpas, thoughts about things that aren't actually happening right now on your mat, pulling you away from the present sensation of the pose. Nidra, the fourth one, is deep sleep. This vritti refers to the state of the mind during deep, dreamless sleep, where there's an absence of other vrittis. But it's still a modification of the mind, a sense of emptiness or dormancy. In yoga, while not a direct practice during the waking hours, understanding nidra helps us appreciate states where the mind usual activities profoundly quieted. This is often seen in deep shavasana or the corpse pose. A profound stillness can mimic aspects of this state, a deep resting of the mind where thoughts subside and we hear snoring on mats. The last one is smriti, memory. This is the recollection of past experiences or learned information. Again, as an example, as you enter a pose, a memory arises of a previous time you attempted it and you felt pain. Or perhaps a time when you nailed it perfectly. This memory then influences your current approach to the pose. You might hold back due to fear or push too hard in a desire to recreate your past success. While memory is essential, clinging to it or allowing to dictate the present can be a vritti that can obscure your direct experience. The path to peace, according to yoga, isn't about suppressing these thoughts entirely. That's often futile. Instead, it's about observing them without attachment. It's about recognizing that you are not your thought, you are the awareness that observes them. Think of your mind as a vast sky and your thoughts as clouds passing through. Some are dark, some are stormy, some are light and fluffy, some are contradictory. If you identify with every cloud, you'll be tossed about by the weather, sometimes low, sometimes high, sometimes proud, and so on. If you simply observe them from the calm expanse of the sky, you remain untouched. There's this practice called pratipaksha bhavana. It means cultivating the opposite thought or attitude. When the thought arises, oh, I'm too tired, I'll just skip yoga today and go tomorrow, that's one vritti. Instead of immediately giving in or fighting it angrily, pratipaksha bhavana suggests that we gently introduce the opposite thought. You might recall the feeling of vitality after a good practice, the mental clarity, the physical ease, or you might think even a short practice is better than no practice, and I'll feel so much better for it. You don't fight the lazy thought, but you offer an alternative, a more beneficial perspective. It's not about denying the initial thought, but about consciously choosing to nourish a different and more empowering one. This gentle redirection helps us detach from the initial limiting thought, consciously choosing a path that aligns with our higher intentions. This leads us to the ability to distinguish between what serves us and what doesn't, between the fleeting thought and our deeper, more peaceful nature. When we cultivate this, we are less likely to be swayed by every contradictory impulse. We can move from conflict to clarity. Now, let's take this internal understanding of conflict within us and magnify it. The same dynamics of different thoughts, opinions, and perspective that cause internal conflict within us are precisely what lead to a friction in our relationships, our families, and our workplace. Let me tell you about an experience of my friend. One day, she had a rather challenging morning. She woke up feeling a familiar internal conflict. One part of her was urging her to get up early for her morning yoga class, fueled by the truth of knowing that it boosts her energy and focus. But another powerful vritti, a deep seated memory of comfort and tiredness from late night, whispered, "Just snooze a little longer. You don't really need that class today. You went 3 times already." This internal tug of war left her feeling drained and irritable, even before her feet hit the floor. She eventually chose to snooze the alarm, and subtle sense of "I'm not disciplined enough" began to settle in. This internal unresolved conflict then flowed directly into her first interaction of the day. As she was rushing to get ready for office, her partner, a well-meaning one, asked, "Did you remember to take out the trash?" My friend, still wrestling with her inner fatigue and internal critique of skipping the yoga class, immediately got defensive. Her mind created a vikalpa, an imagined scenario, that her partner was judging her, implying she's forgetful and not contributing enough. So instead of simple, "Oh, I forgot, I'll do it now," she snapped. "Can't you ever just, without making it sound like I'm failing at everything?" Immediately, the small conflict erupted in this relationship, directly stemming from her internal state. The very same dynamic, just a few hours later, played out in her office. She walked into a team meeting, still carrying a low hum of that internal frustration and the residue of the morning's argument. During the meeting, a colleague presented a new strategy for an upcoming project. Her mind immediately went into a critique mode. Her internal narrative of "I'm not good enough" subtly shifted to a narrative of "this idea isn't good enough" or "my ideas are always better." Instead of listening openly and contributing constructively, her internal tension translated into this rigid resistance. She jumped in with sharp counterarguments, focusing on flaws rather than potential, and dismissing valid points, ultimately hindering the team's ability to find common ground. The meeting became strained and the progress stalled. This example highlights how our own internal conflicts, the unresolved battles within our minds, can so easily spill over, creating friction and disharmony in our closest relationships and impacting our effectiveness in our professional lives. The conflicts that arise in these interactions, whether with a loved one or a colleague, are simply magnified versions of those conflicting thoughts we experience within ourselves. Just as we can be at war internally, we can be at odds with others around us. And it's no coincidence that the corporate world, conflict resolution has become a central theme. It's a key interview question, a core component of leadership trainings, and a crucial skill for team effectiveness. Why? Because organizations recognize that unresolved conflicts hinder innovation, productivity, and overall well-being. These corporate strategies, often taught as modern management techniques, mirror ancient yogic principles. Ahimsa, or non-harming, extends to our communication, urging us to speak with kindness and respect even when we disagree. Satya, or truthfulness, encourages honest communication, but always tempered with ahimsa. And the very act of pranayama, or breath control, or short meditation breaks can help individuals in a tense meeting calm their nervous system, allowing them to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Imagine if, in a heated debate at work, everyone paused, took a few deep breaths, and consciously tried to observe their own reactions and the other person's perspective without judgment. This shift would be profound. Often, conflict escalates because we fuel it with our own reactions: fear, aggression, defensiveness. We don't need to feed the fire. It cannot burn as fiercely if we don't. Beyond the workplace, the most intimate space of our lives, our families, and our personal relationships, are often where these conflicts feel most acute and emotionally charged. We bring our full selves, our histories, our samskaras, those ingrained patterns, into these connections. And when conflicting vrittis clash, sparks fly. Consider a relationship where one partner desires more independence, their truth, while the other yearns for more togetherness, it's their own truth. If these two truths become fixed and unyielding, viparyaya, a deep rifting can form. Or perhaps a memory or a smriti of a past argument resurfaces, coloring the current disagreement unnecessarily. Let's spend some time exploring how yoga philosophy can help us navigate these precious yet often challenging personal relationships. These are hard, but with practice can be attained. The first one is ahimsa, or non-harming in communication. This extends beyond physical violence to harmful words, blame, or passive-aggressive behavior. Before speaking in anger, ask, will these words cause harm? Even when expressing a difficult truth, it can be done with kindness and respect for our other person's dignity. Brahmacharya, moderation, or right use of energy. This yama encourages us to direct our energy wisely. Instead of spending emotional energy on resentment, blame, or rehashing past hurts, can we direct it towards understanding, forgiveness, or actively nurturing the relationship? This means stepping back from this endless cycle of who's right and who's wrong and focusing on what truly serves the connection. The third one is Isvara Parinadana, meaning surrender to a higher purpose. In relationships, this isn't about giving up, but about surrendering our rigid attachment to our way, our outcome, our being right. It's about trusting that the relationship has its own unique path. And by releasing the control and judgment, we can open up to solutions and understandings that might not have been apparent when we were clinging on to our fixed ideas. Sometimes when we let go of the need to control, the other person or the outcome or the situation naturally begins to soften. And the last one is santosha, contentment, the most important one. While growth in relationships is vital, so is finding contentment in what is. Often conflict arises from these unmet expectations or a desire for the other person to be different. Practicing santosha can help us appreciate our loved ones for who they are, rather than constantly wishing them that they were someone else, which naturally reduces friction. When my mother and father would argue, I learned that while the conflict was painful, the reconciliation was often the sweetest part. Seeing them forgive each other and choose love over being right taught me that arguments can be normal, even natural. But the genuine effort towards resolution is paramount. The goal isn't to never argue, but to always find a way back to that connection, to prioritize harmony over perceived rightness. And believe me when I say, I wish I had understood this sooner. Now, let's cast our gaze even wider. When we look at global issues, the complexities of conflict in places like Syria, Palestine, or the historical tensions between India Pakistan. We can see the same dynamics of differing thoughts, beliefs, histories, and desires playing out at an immense, often devastating scale. Each side holds its own narrative, its own vritti of truth, often deeply ingrained. How can we use the same ideas from dealing with our own inner arguments and to understand this bigger global problem? And more importantly, to keep our inner peace when we are faced with these huge challenges. The first point is observe, don't absorb. Just like you observe your own thoughts, acknowledge global conflicts. Read and understand different points of views. But practice viveka. Know that information helps you understand and what makes you anxious or angry. Don't let the conflict consume your emotions. Your reaction to the outside events is a choice. Practice karuna, compassion. Have compassion for everyone involved in suffering on all sides of a conflict. This doesn't mean agreeing with bad actions, but recognizing that everyone is human and often suffering is a root of deep divisions. Compassion for others help lessen your own anger and frustration. Focus on what you can control. We can't save global conflicts directly, but we can use our tapas or our focused effort on what we can do. This might be learning more, supporting charities, advocating for peace, or simply creating more peace in our own lives. Is there a sense of letting go and trusting a higher purpose? That's where it comes in. Do your best within your reach, then release attachment to outcomes beyond your control. And lastly, cultivate this inner peace as a contribution. The most powerful thing you can do for world peace is to find peace within yourself. A peaceful mind is less likely to project anger or judgment. A calm body is less likely to be overwhelmed with outside chaos. By managing your own thoughts and finding your own peace, we add to the world's calm instead of its discord. If you're joining in, you're listening to Karuna, Yoga with Compassion, and I'm your host, Kiran. And today we are exploring the fundamentals of conflict, both internal and external. This reminds me of this old story, often told in an ancient Persia, about a powerful king. Even with all his money and power, he felt tossed about by his emotions. When things went well, he became too happy and even a bit arrogant. When things went badly, he felt deep sadness, like his troubles would never end. The king saw how much these emotion swings were affecting him. So he called his wisest advisors and gave them a special task. He wanted a phrase for a ring, a simple saying that would always remind him of something important. It had to be something that would comfort him when he was sad and calm his pride when he was joyful. He insisted that his phrase must be true for all situations. The wise man thought for days, looking through many old sayings and lessons. Nothing seemed quite right. Finally, the oldest and most respected wise man, who truly understood that nothing lasts forever, came up with an answer. He brought the king a simple plain ring. On it were just 4 words: "This too shall pass." At first, the king was confused by how simple it was, but soon he understood its powerful meaning. On the days when he was joyful, no matter how grand, it was temporary and he would eventually fade. This helped him stay humble and grounded, stopping him from becoming too proud. On the other days, during times of great loss, failure, or deep personal pain, the king would again look at his ring. The words would quietly tell him that the pain, the suffering, and the difficulties he faced wouldn't last forever. They too would eventually go away. Remember, we are creatures of habit. Our reactions, whether to an internal conflict, a difficult colleague, or global news, are often predictable. almost as if someone is pressing a button that elicits a programmed response. Mindfulness helps us become aware of those habitual reactions. It gives us a crucial pause, a choice to respond differently. As I often say, live on the wild side, try something unexpected. If your habit is to react with anger, try kindness. If it is to speak fast, try speaking slowly. These small shifts in your behavior can profoundly diffuse conflict. Back to your pratipaksha bhavna, opposite thought or attitude. And another keyword, this too shall pass. All good things, all bad things, the fleeting fear, feelings, the change is the only constant thing in life. True conflict resolution isn't about forcing or being right. It's about understanding the cause. It's about letting go of the need to win, and prioritize harmony. Just as you learn to relax the body and observe what makes an irritation worse or better, we can learn what feeds or lessens conflict in our relationships and wider world. The journey from our internal conflict to an external peace is a continuous one. It begins with a simple act of noticing our own thoughts, our own inner dialogues, and when we learn to observe our own heart versus mind battles with curiosity and compassion, when we apply the wisdom of santosha, ahimsa, mindfulness to our personal interactions, we build the inner resilience, need to face the larger, more complex challenges of the world without losing our balance. Remember, the nature of the mind is to produce thoughts, sometimes conflicting ones. But the nature of your true self is peace. You can calm the sky, not passing clouds. And by constantly returning to the place of inner stillness, we become anchors of peace, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. Thank you for joining me on Karuna, Yoga with Compassion. And until next time, may your inner landscape be clear, your conflicts resolved, and your peace be profound. Namaste.